Hey guys, it's Dr. Simmer, and today I wanted to try something a little bit different. We're not going in the game today, and I'm not building anything. But today I wanted to do a tutorial on how I make my thumbnails, because I've gotten a lot of questions on what I use to make my thumbnails and how I make them and everything. So I decided, why not just do a little tutorial for you guys. But, yeah, let's get started. So the first items you will need are GIMP, which is the program I have open right now. And it is a free editing software, and you can download it. Just type in GIMP download or something, and which I believe is what it's called, and I believe it is the first download. Let's check real quick. Yeah, it's this one right here is the one I clicked on. Just go to GIMP downloads and then just download whatever OS. Yeah, that's the word. So whichever one you have, just download the GIMP that's associated with your system or whatever OS operating system. Yeah, that. And then the next thing you will need are fonts, which every computer comes built in with the normal fonts. There's just a lot of fonts, but it's more helpful if you download some fonts from like a font downloading website. The site I usually get my fonts from is dafont.com, and they just have a really big selection of fonts, and you can choose your style of font. I usually go with something in the fancy and then or script, something whatever, but it just depends on your style, your personality and everything. You can go with gothic if that's what you like, or techno, whatever. And you can go to show more fonts, and there's just pages and pages of fonts. And yeah, you just click the download button, and then you can install it into your fonts, which I will link a tutorial on how to do that. I'm not going to show you how to do that because that's not what I'm doing for this tutorial, but I will leave links on how to install all of these items for you guys in the description. And the fonts that I use, this is one that I made, which is this right here. I just did my handwriting, but the ones I use for my thumbnails are this one right here, Portobasto, I guess is the word, and it's just really pretty, and that's the big font I usually use. And then the other one I use is also a P one, so I'll just scroll up right here. It's Paper Cutting Medium. That's the other one I use most often, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that because I don't need it. And then the next thing you'll need is, of course, screenshots or images from whatever game you're playing. It's not just for the Sims. You can use this for whatever game you're playing. So usually you'll need a screenshot or image, preferably from in the game itself and not directly from the video. You just get a screenshot, and if you don't know where screenshots are, you can go to File, Open as Layers. Once you have all your thumbnail stuff open, go to Documents, Electronic Arts, The Sims 4, Screenshots, and that's all the screenshots you've taken. Or, if you have Sims 3, go to Sims 3. If it's a different game, then I'm not exactly sure what the path will be. It'll probably be a little bit different. But, I mean, it's a quick Google search and you'll be able to find it, no problem. And then optional are curves and overlays, which I will get into more whenever I'm actually doing the thumbnail. And this is optional. It's not a requirement. It just, messes with the lighting and saturation and everything like that. And it just looks a little bit better, in my opinion, if you use these things. But, yeah, I will show you all of that, and I will put the ones that I've made and use most often in the description as a download, so you guys can just download those if you don't want to make them or download somewhere else. Spend the time looking for them, because sometimes you got what you want. And so yeah, that's basically all the things that you will need. So to create the thumbnail, you will go to File, New, and then the size I use for my thumbnails, for the width is 1280, and then height is 720, and you want to be sure that it is on pixels. And then this will be landscape, and then you can change the PPI, DPI if you want, but I mean, it doesn't really matter because I'm not going to be printing out the thumbnails, so I just keep it to whatever it defaults to. And you just press OK, and you'll have just a blank white image if that's what you chose. And so the first thing I am going to do, I am going to open up my screenshot. Go ahead and get that. So I did save them. I renamed them. So first I will show you how I do my builds. And on my computer, the size is a little bit larger, so I'll have to resize it to fit my thumbnail size, which, I mean, you can make your thumbnails larger if you want, as long as you keep the ratio scale about the same. It should be fine, which, I mean, you can Google search what a thumbnail template should be, thumbnail size for YouTube, and, you know, it'll show you, tell you, find it. Yeah. Okay, and then after that, I create a new layer, and then for my overlay, which is the next step that I usually do, I go to this gradient, well, the blend tool, and it creates a gradient, and then whichever color is on top is the one that it will go to first, if that makes any sense. Like, it's the first color. So I usually have the black on the bottom of my screenshots, so I will start down there because that's where, because black is my top color over here. Oops, sorry about that. Since black is my top color, that's what I will go to, and you can press Control and it'll do a straight line, which is what I like to do. And then, you know, there's that. You can have it whatever color you want to. Black and white's just my personal preference, but I mean, if you want like a blue or something, you know, you can do that. And then you'll go to this little arrow up here next to mode, and you will change it to an overlay. And then I'll quickly show you what it looks like, you know, comparison. So this is what it looks like with the overlay. You can see it has a little bit more saturation and contrast. And then if you take it off, then it's just the basic in-game image, and it just doesn't look as nice, in my opinion. But I mean, it's just personal preference. Personal preference. So yeah, I just prefer the overlay. And then after that, I will go ahead and do the curve of my image. So actually, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this. That way you can see what it looks like compared to the normal. And then I'll just go to colors, go to curves, and then you go to this little arrow right here. Unless you're making your own. If you know how to make your own, then, you know, more power to you. You can Google how to make your own. I mean, it's no problem. Usually I'll just mess with the value a little bit because you don't really need to tweak the in-game color balance at all. So I usually don't mess with that unless, you know, I just want to give it a little bit more interest. But basically, you just want to mess with the contrast a little bit and all that because that's too dark. But just the brightness and contrast is usually what I mess with. But anyway, you go to import settings from file, and then I have a lot of curves because I take pictures a lot and have a bunch of different curves for different lighting. So I have this one that I use, the YouTube thumb one, and that's what I use for builds. The Sims one right here is the one that I use for create a sim videos, but I'll show you that in just a second. So here it is, and then that's what it looks like. Here's the preview, you know, before, after, you know, it just gives a little bit more interest. It makes the shadows a little bit sharper, makes the edges a little bit sharper, and it just looks a little bit nicer. It's brighter, and it looks a lot nicer whenever you're looking at a small image of it. So I'll go ahead and show you how that looks if you're looking at a small version of it. So yeah, let's just do that, and that is with the curve and the overlay. This is without the curve and without the overlay. So as you can see, it just looks a little bit better, in my opinion, at least. So yeah, just zoom back in. Okay, and then usually I like to have, well, not usually, always, I like to have a border on my images. So I just do that, and then you can go to View, Show Grid, and then I usually like go to Snap to Grid because it's easier. Then you can go to Configure. I usually have it set to 20, and then you can see right here it just makes this grid a little bit bigger. And then I will take this rectangle select tool, and I will select right here just one square out from the outside. I will reverse my colors here so the white is the color I'll be using. Then you go to the bucket fill tool, fill that in, and then you can either go to select and shrink, and then I'll usually go to about 10, I believe. Yeah, 10's pretty good. So that, and then you'll just press Control X, and then it'll get rid of the inside of the box there. And then we can just go to View and Show Grid, and you can see there's just a little border there, and it looks nice. And you know, you can make this an overlay too if you want it to be a little bit less visible. But I usually just have mine set to normal. I like it as an overlay. It's just my personal preference. Or you can change the opacity and it works fine too. But I just have my normal. And then you will go to the, what is this? The overlay layer, I guess? Yeah. and then that's when you will add your text. You want to make sure that it's above this layer, especially if you're going to use a color, because it will change a little bit if you have the overlay over the text layer, which, I mean, for me personally, it doesn't really matter because I use white and black text, so I don't really have to change that. But if you go to that, and then you just draw the box wherever you want to. And then this one was my 10,000 build challenge thing that I did, and I believe it was called Frugal Starter, so that's what I'll type in. Sorry if you can hear my keyboard. So, and then I use Portabesto for this, and you'll want to resize it. It just depends on how big you want the text, and you'll want it to be big enough so that people can actually see it in the small thumbnail. So I believe I usually go with 150 for the larger text, and then, you know, you can just move it wherever you want to. I'll just move it over here, I guess. Whoop. And then for the image, you'll want to make sure that you leave a little bit of space at the bottom of the image. I didn't for this one because I'm an idiot, but you'll want to be sure that you leave a little bit of space at the bottom of the image whenever you're taking it in the game. That way you're able to add the text or whatever. And then, so I'll do that, and then I'll usually have 2 text layers, and then this will just be like, you know, if it's a build challenge, I'll put build challenge, so let me type that in. And then the second layer, I usually use a different font, so I'll use that one, and I'll make it smaller, so let's go about 75, I think. Yeah, that's usually what I go with, I believe. And then you can just put that wherever, you know, you can put it here, you can put it over there. It usually changes with me, but yeah. And then you can change your foreground, background colors again. Go back down to your overlay layer. Right click on the image, go to layer, and then new layer, and it just be transparency. And then you will want to right click on Frugal Starter, because right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a shadow behind the text, because right now it just kind of looks a little flat and I don't really like that, and it just shows up better if you like have a lighter background, like say, you know, if it's just a lighter background like this, you can't really see the text all that well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on Frugal Starter, which is the big text, and then go to Alpha to Selection, and it'll just select that whole text, and then you go back to your transparent layer that you just created, go to the bucket fill tool and click inside the text area, and then if you hide this layer, you'll see that it just colors that black, and then you'll want to do that to the other layer of text, and then go back to the transparent layer that you made, color that one as well. And then you can just press Control-Shift-A and it'll unselect everything. And then while you're still on the transparent layer with the shadows, you'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then I usually go to about 25, which is usually the one I use for it. And then right now I don't like the shadow too much. It's a little bit dark for my liking, so I'll usually turn the opacity down to about 55 or so. If it's a darker image, then it doesn't really need to be so dark, so I'll just, you know, tweak it to however I like. And if it's a lighter image, I will make it a little bit darker, because then the text just shows up better. And that's pretty much it. Also, right here I made a little bit of a mistake, because I put the text over on the right side of the image on the bottom. You don't want to do that, because whenever you're viewing the thumbnail on the video, like someone's just viewing it, the timestamp is usually in this area down here. I'm not exactly sure how big it is, but I'm guessing it's about this. So you don't want to put any text in this area, because that's where the timestamp will be, and they won't be able to see the text. So you'll want to try to keep it over on this side or in the middle, as long as it doesn't go over into the bottom right. And you know, anywhere on the top is fine as well. It doesn't have to be on the bottom. You just don't want to cover the background image. And yeah, you can also add little icons or anything to it if you want, if you prefer, or your logo. If that's something you want to do, then, you know, more power to you. All you have to do is go to File, Open as Layer, and then I don't actually have mine saved, so I'm just going to use a basic image, because why not? So I'm going to pretend this is like my little logo or something. So I'm just going to resize it to whatever size I want. That'll be fine. And then you can just, you know, move it wherever, and it's fine. Oh, and to resize, I probably went a little bit too fast, but you'll go to the scale tool you can double click on it, and then you can just drag it wherever. Or you can change your numbers over here to whatever size you want. Make sure it's locked if you're doing that, because if not, and then you just change this to like 100, no, 1000 or something. Oh, that's too much. Then it'll just stretch it that way, and it just looks a little bit weird. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that the layer is locked if you're resizing something. So that is how I usually do my build thumbnails. For the my sim thumbnails, it's a little bit different. Well, at least for the background layers and everything. So usually I'll just go and find my screenshot, go down here, and then I'll just go ahead and open both of these, and then do that. Now first I want to address the Sims picture right here, which I'm going to resize actually, because, oh, see, he's squashed now. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure the layer is locked, and then you'll just drag it to whatever size you want, and I guess that's about the right size, it's fine. And then you'll want to go off of the image to drag it, because if you don't, then you'll actually drag the overlay layer, and you don't want to do that. If you accidentally do that, all you have to do is press Ctrl Z and it'll undo it. Or you can just go to edit and undo. So yeah, but to get a plain background like I have here, see if I take off the overlay, then you see it's just a flat color in the background. It's a mod. So you just need to search for solid background cast colors or something, solid cast background, or just a cast background in general. And, you know, there's just a whole bunch of them. Or you can look up how to make them yourself. You can use the in-game one. It's just a little bit harder. You'll probably have to use the tool right here, the free select tool, and then you'll have to slowly go through and outline. And it's not right now because I have snap grid on, which you'll want to take off. But yeah, if you use the free select tool, you'll just have to slowly go and outline your sim like this, which is not something I want to spend time doing. So what I usually do, I go to the fuzzy select tool, and you'll want to make sure that your image is resized. There may be a shortcut button to make it so that you can remove the background without it being all weird and stuff. But if you don't resize it, I will show you real quick if I can. Yeah, see, if it's bold text, that means it hasn't been resized. And if you try to remove the background, so let's just do that, and then press Ctrl X to get rid of it. It'll just be whatever your background color is here. See, if I undo that and then have black as my background layer, then I'll do that and it's black, and that's not what you want. So you'll want to resize it. If it's already the size that you want it to be, all you have to do is double click and press scale, and it'll just get rid of it. There's probably a shortcut button, but I'm not sure what that is. So if you want to Google that or something, then, you know, more power to you. But yeah, it's just how I do it. So now that he is resized, we will go to the fuzzy select tool. I will select the background, and then usually I will go to select and grow, and I'll usually go to 1 or 2 depending on the image and how big this is around the sim. So usually I'll just go to 2 though, and then I'll just press Ctrl X and it'll get rid of the background. And yeah, okay, it's white because I have this. I didn't. Okay, I'll just do that so you can see better. So yeah, that gets rid of all the white stuff. If you don't do that, and yeah, this is before it's resized, so I'll just press Ctrl X on that, and then see, he'll have like a weird white border around him, which, I mean, if you like that, then that's fine, but you'll want to at least make it a little bit bigger, but otherwise it'll look weird. And then usually what I like to do for sims is I will take an in-game photo to use as the background. This is just one I had in my screenshots folder because I switched computers, so I don't have all my pictures. I haven't actually used this one before. I might use it. It's kind of pretty, but yeah, you'll just you can resize it if you want. It doesn't really matter because it's just going to be background image, just, you know, to add a little bit more interest. And you can leave it like this, which is usually what I do. Or if you want, you can go to Gaussian blur and you can just blur the background however much you like, and, you know, it just gives more focus on the sim in the middle. And this is also the template that I usually use for my sims. But if you want a border around your sim, which will kind of make him stand out from the background a little bit better if your sim is dark and the background is dark. So you'll just you know, go to your fuzzy select tool and select the transparent area around the sim. we'll go to select and grow, and then usually for this size of image, I'd like to make the little border around the sim about 10 pixels, and you know, that's a pretty large area. Then you'll want to right click, go to layer and new layer, and then just press OK, just be a transparent layer. And then you'll drag that layer under the sim layer, and then make sure white is your color, or you know, whatever color you want the border to be is your top foreground color. And then you just click inside the sim area where the selection is, and you know, that's what it looks like. But I don't use those, so I'm just going to delete it. And you know, you can move your text wherever you like. Usually for a sim or a let's play, I'm going to go ahead and delete the shadow layer. I like to have the text about in the center of the image, and then I usually just have it say cast up here, which is, you know, create a sim. And then I will go to the overlay layer, right click, layer, new layer. Okay, just be transparent because we're gonna add a shadow. And then, as I said before, you just go in and add the shadow, which I accidentally made white. So you'll want to make sure black is your color, unless you're using a different colored shadow than, you know, whatever color shadow you're using. And then you just blur it. It doesn't really show up too much on this because it's a darker image, so I usually just put it about halfway and it's fine. And then I will go back to the sim layer, and I usually use a curve for my sims too, just gives them a little bit more contrast and detail. So that's what the sims curve comes up to. So I'll just open that, and here is the before and after. You know, it just gives it a little bit more interest and just adds a little bit more shadow and everything, and it's fine. And then that's usually how I make my create a sim. Now, to prevent you from having to start from scratch every time you make a thumbnail and keep your thumbnails from looking completely different, you can go to File, Save As, and then, you know, you'll just go wherever. I'll just, you know, make this. I'll just make a quick folder real quick, and then you'll want to save it as like sim thumbnail or something. Sorry, you'll probably be able to hear my typing because this keyboard is stupid. But you just save it as whatever, and then you don't change this. You make sure it's a .xcf, and then you could save it. And then, you know, if you close it, you're like, oh gosh, because if you accidentally close it, it's whatever. And then you go to File, Open, and then you can find that again, which is in Pictures. Then you find the folder you just made, which I don't remember. Alright, Tutorial. And then you'll just choose your XCF, open, and, you know, it saves it with all the layers and everything, and it's fine. And then to export your image, well, to save your thumbnail, you just go to Export As, and then, you know, save wherever. I'm just going to save it to the same place because why not? And then you'll just name it Sim Thumb or something. And I usually save mine as a JPG or JPEG because it saves as a smaller file size than a PNG. But I think a PNG probably makes it look a little bit less pixelated, distorted if it resizes the image, which it'll probably do for a thumbnail. But, you know, it looks fine to me, so I just save it as a JPG. And yeah, that's basically it. Just be sure to make the size. Just be sure to do some research on the size if you're going to use a different size than 1280 by 720. That way it doesn't look stretched or weird. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how I make my thumbnails. And then, you know, if you make YouTube videos, you probably know how to upload your thumbnails, so I'm not really going to go into all of that. If you don't know, then you can probably, you know, just Google tutorial and it's fine. But I will leave all the links to everything I've mentioned in the description. I will upload my curves and my overlay if you would like to use that. And, you know, for the overlay, all you have to do is go to File, Open as Layer, and then you'll open the overlay, and then just turn it to an overlay layer, and it'll be fine. You know, you don't have to do anything fancy to it. But that is pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and end this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. And if you like these kinds of videos, then let me know and I'll do some more. I do plan on doing a tutorial on how I make my intro and my outro. I'm not the best at explaining things. I tend to go on and on and on. But, I mean, I can try, right? You know, help somebody out, hopefully. But again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!